Everyone, in this lecture, we are going to talk about linked lists. What is linked list? How do we use it? And then how do we perform the most popular operations on linked lists? What are the advantages, disadvantages compared with other data structures? A linked list, as the name implies, is when you have elements, it's a linear data structure where elements are connected with each other, but they are not physically placed uh, in memory. They are not physically placed next to each other in the memory. Um, Now there are advantages and disadvantages. We're going to learn how the linked list works, but before that, let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of linked lists. The advantage is dynamic size. You don't have, it's not like arrays. Arrays, you don't have to know the size or the length of the array before you can create one. You have to know the number of spots to use. Now in linked list, you don't have to. You can just add more elements as needed. So the dynamic size is a very powerful advantage. There's also an ease of insertion and deletion. You can insert elements easily and you can delete them easily. The drawbacks is you cannot access elements randomly, not like arrays. You can access any elements, as long as you know the index, the location, which is not the case in an array linked list. And also the other drawback is extra memory space for pointer is required with each element of the list. So let's create an example of linked list. Um, so we're going to start with creating the class called node because we're talking about linked list of nodes linked to each other. So I will switch to Eclipse, and I already created a class called node. So the class node has only two variables. We have a variable that's the either string or integer. Let's choose string as an example. So we have the value, which is the data, and then also we have a reference to the next element, like the memory address of the next element. So we're going to use node. We're going to call it next. So that's the only two variables. So we're going to create the constructor. Constructor has the same name as the class name. So public node. So it takes two parameters, the string. We're going to call it val. And then the node, we're going to call it index. And then we're going to assign our parameters to our variable. Val and next equals index. And then after that, we have the accessor methods. So we have get value, return value, and then we have return node. We're going to return get next. So that's going to give us a reference to the node return next. And then also we need modifiers. So it's a void method set value if we want to change the value. So we're going to put here text string vol and then value equals value. And then we have the other modifier set next. So to basically create or relate our current node to the next one. So I'm going to put node, and this is the reference to the next, or to the new node. So NXT. So here we have next equals NX. So this is the class, very simple. Now let's talk about how we keep track of our linked list, how we add elements, whether it's in the front of the linked list or at the end or in between, and how to delete elements from the linked list. Now, let me switch back to PowerPoint, and then, so this is basically the operation we're going to be performing. So this is an example of linked list. We have a variable, we call it head or any other name, that points to the front of the linked list. And they're all linked. That's all which we need, a variable that points to the first node of our linked list, which is in this case number 10. And then when we call the method getNext, it's going to give us actually the next one. GetNext, every time you call the method getNext, it will give you access to the next one. So let's start with inserting a node. How do we insert a node? So this is an example. As you can see, we have a linked list, 20, 30, 40, and then we have the variable head pointing to the first one. Now to add a new node, we have to create a node with the value of 10, and then change the pointer, like the head should be pointing to 10 now, not to 20. And then the new node should be pointing to 20. So I'll show you how to do that, like in our example. So this is the class node. So I'm going to create another class of where the main method is located, and then we can start creating our linked list and then start performing this operation. So right click class, we're going to call it tester. All right, so now we have an empty linked list. So let's start with the first node. So we can put first node, we're going to call it head. So it's new node, we're going to call the constructor. The first one, let's say, is Mike. Now, since the last element will be connected to null, so this is our first node. We have only one node here. Now, how do we add a new node next to Mike? There are two ways. I can either do it here, create a new node. Let's say, for example, his name is Steve. Okay, now there are two connected. I have two nodes. So if I try to print, I'm going to say, as long as the head is different than null, keep printing the value. System out, print line, head that gets a value. This. And then make sure that the head is pointing to the next element. Head equals head plus get next. All the way to the end until you get to me. If I run the program, you can see that we have the two, Mike and Steve. Right. Okay, I can put them horizontally if you want. Okay. Now there is a different way of doing it. So I did it this way, but I can do it different way. So I can create each one of them separately. I'm going to put this is null, that's the first node. And then now I'm going to create the second one. So I'm going to call it second. Equals new node. And then let's call it Steve. And this one is connected to null. Now we have two separate nodes. How do we connect them? I'm going to put head set next to what? The second. So when you head equals second, set next to second, and the second will be, let's see here, yeah, Mike Steve. So I can either do this or I can do it as I mentioned earlier. Okay. I think this is much easier. I can create, let's say, many of them using one statement. And using one variable. So as I mentioned, let's say we have 4 people or 5 people connected with each other, like holding hands maybe. So we have Steve, and then add one more. Let's say new node, and then we have Maria, and then after that we have, let's say, Monica. So we have four. Let's add one more. So new node, and then we have, let's say, Dave. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to add 1, 2, to close the parentheses. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now if I run the program, it's going to print all of them because they're all connected to each other. See that? So we have Mike, Steve, Maria, Monica, Dave. All right. Now let's start now making changes. Let's say I want to add a new, let's say we have a new friend who's trying to join this team of friends. So let's say the name is Bob. So we want Bob to be in the front. How can we do this? So what we're gonna do is, as it says right here, so we need to create a new node, but the head should be pointing to the new node, and the new node will be pointing to the what used to be the first node. So how does it work? We're going to say head is equal new node, that's pointing to new node with the name Bob. Bob is pointing to the next, what used to be the new node, which is Mike. So that's head, that's the old head. That means what head used to point to before the change. So this is add new node, then the head is pointing to the new node, and the new node is pointing to the Mike, what used to be the first one. So now if I run the program, you're going to see that Bob is in the front, as you can see right here. Oh, I could. Okay. So this is the first one, how to add in the front. Now, how do I add at the end? So to add at the end, okay, let me have just a few elements here. I mean, 2 minutes of this way. So let's say I want to well, let me leave it like this. So this is okay, the first one. I'm gonna make comment this one out so it doesn't affect the next operation. So I want to add one at the end. The first one, to add at the end, I have to go all the way to David. And then from David, create new node and then connect David to the new node. Now, how do I access David? To access David, there are two ways. Either one after the other. I have to put head get next. How many times? So get next will give me access to Steve, and then another get next will give me access to Maria, and then another one to Monica, and another one to David. Now from there, I'm going to create for set next. Set next will allow me to create new link. So it's a new node with the name. Let's say I want to add a new one. The name is John. Okay. Now John will be the last one in the list, so it will be connected to new. See that? So now I have a new one at the end. Now let me run the program. Remember that we don't have Bob anymore because we commented this. So if I run the program, you're going to see that John is at the end. Okay? So this is how we add at the end. Or if we don't want to use too many get next, we can use a loop. We can say while the next one is because I want to get close to the node, like where David is. So I'm going to say while head that get next is different than new, keep moving forward. So I'm going to say here head is equal to head dot get next. Okay. And then once I get to, basically this will get me to David, because David next is null, so the program will stop. And then after that, I'm going to connect head to our new node, which is David. And I'm sorry, the John. And then John will connect to me. Okay. So this will add. Now the only problem here, the head is not pointing to the front anymore to Mike. So before I can do that, I need a variable. I'm gonna call it first. Before I start changing head, I need to make sure I still point to it. I need a variable to still point to Mike. So I'm gonna call it first. Let's point into it. So this will make sure that when I start pointing, I still have something, a variable that points to the beginning. So here I'm going to use first, because now head is pointing to the last one. I'm going to put first. So now if I run it, it's going to show me the changes I made. Can you see Mike, Steve, Maria, Monica, David, and John? Now if I put the head, it's not going to give me that, because head is not pointing to the beginning anymore. Or I keep changing head equals head that gets first. So that changes. So if I run it, it's not going to give me the list. It's going to give me only the end, St. David and John. So that's where head stops. Okay. So that's the first one. Okay. How do we now? How about deleting? We just learned how to. Now, before I talk about deleting, what about if I want to add, but not to the front, not to the end. I want to add, let's say, between Mike and Steve. Let's say that John, he wants to be between or close to his friend, Mike and Steve. So how can I do that? So I'm going to add John between Mike and Steve. Now, the first one, I need to put head that's set next, because I want to connect head to the new node. It is new node with the name John. All right. And I want John to point to what to Steve. What is Steve is what head that get next. Because head that get next is Steve. So that's gonna create a new node with the name John between the two. Now if I run it, it should be that John now is between Mike and Steve. Okay. So now we talked about insertion. Let's talk about deletion. How can we delete? Let's start with the first one. How do we delete our first element? Now let me show you the steps here. So inserting, we talked about inserting. I'll talk about in deleting. Or deleting the first. Let's start with the first node. So to delete, basically you have to point, head should point to the next element. Once head points to the next element, that automatically removes the first one, as you can see in the picture. So how do we do it in the code? We're going to put head is not pointing to the first one anymore, it's pointing to the next one, head that's get next. So that's automatically will basically disregard or ignore or just, skip the first element. If I run it, you're not going to see Mike in the list, starting from Steve. Now, what about if I want to delete the last one, David? Okay. So there are two ways. If you want to do it using get next, I have to put, so I want to delete the last one is David. So to delete David, I have to access Monica first. I have to go one by one all the way to Monica and then set it to null, set next to null. Because null is the last thing in the list. I'm going to put here head get next. So that's going to give me to get next. So that's going to give me access to Steve, and another get next will get me access to Maria, and another one to Mike. And from there, set next to null. That's going to basically remove David from the list. So if I run it, you're not going to see David because Monica is pointing to null, but there is no David. Yeah. Now, there is another way. What about if I don't know how many I have? What I'm going to do, I'm going to use the loop. I'm going to say while, because I want to get to before David. So I'm going to say here, before that get next, that's get next. I know David is the last one. That's the one I want to name. So I'm going to say, as long as get next is different than no, okay, keep moving forward. So head is equal to head that's get next, which means if get next is null, which is the case in Monica, because Monica get next is David, another get next is null. So I'm here at Monica. So if I accept the loop, it means head is pointing to Monica. And at that point, I'm going to set next to null. And again, like what we did before, head starts changing. So I need to have another variable to keep track of the front, something that points to mine. So I'm going to put here, and then when I print, it should be. So if I run it, you're going to see it is not going to show David. See, David is not in the list. So this is how we delete the first one and the last one. Now, what about if you want to delete something in the middle? Let's say I want to delete Steve. How can I delete Steve? So to delete Steve, I just have to connect Mike and Maria. Delete. I need to connect Mike. Once Mike and Maria hold hands, then that's going to skip Steve. So I'm going to put head, set next, what? So what is Maria is head, that get next. Okay. If I access Maria, I have to call get next twice. So head is pointing to Mike, so that's going to connect Mike and Maria. All right. Now, I didn't change the head, so I should be okay. I can use head here. So now if I run, you're going to see that it's not going to show here. See, Mike, and then there is no Steve, and then no. So this is pretty much how the linked list. I hope you find this lecture useful. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.